In today's edition of Weather to Watch, we've got snow increasing in frequency in the higher elevations of the Northwest, but as far south as the Sierra Nevada, I'll show you the forecast. Heavy rain is still a problem in the Four Corners area, much of the Southwest, and a series of deep low pressure centers out off the Atlantic coast. Let's take a look. Well, welcome to this show. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller, and we're looking at Monday now. And, it's getting kind of depressing for me because I don't like the shorter days. And now, this exact same thing I used to record would not show the setting sun going across here. Now, as the days get shorter, it's starting to show up more and more. But there's a few obvious features here. First of all, you see a swirl there. We'll zoom in on that in just a second. There seems like there might be another one up here, and you'd be right. There's a frontal boundary here. You can see the moisture flow off Baja is pretty, again, strong into Arizona, and it's even lifting over the mountains there, producing more isolated convection. And something's going on offshore of Northern California, big storm there. Is that indeed what is happening? Well, let's check. 500 millibar flow, and indeed we do have a huge low, very deep at the 500 millibar level right off the coast of Northern California, causing that swirl in the clouds. Meanwhile, this low out here on the East Coast is not nearly as impressive, but has been slow moving and has been providing just little spin centers rotating around it, vorticity centers that have kept various forms of low pressure in play over the last couple of days. Fortunately, that seems to be receding a little bit and getting a little bit weaker. If we look at the surface map itself, there's the cool front running from Rockford to just south of Kansas City through the heart of Kansas. And there's that one lowest pressure center at the surface, at least. It's right on the border between the Carolinas. And we'll take a closer look at that here in just a second. Another area of high pressure is centered in southern Canada, but that one doesn't have a pathway any great distance into the U.S. anymore because the jet stream is fundamentally changing and not really sending those down into the central U.S. anymore. There's that one swirl in the clouds looking at the visible satellite loop well off the coast of Charleston on this Monday afternoon. If you look at the surface map, there's actually a series of lows. This one is weakening. This one is developing. Both of these are occluded low pressure centers. Kind of in a neat pattern, actually. These are fueled by the temperature difference a lot of times between the relatively cool and dry land and the warm and moist Gulf Stream out here. So these have been referred to as nor'easters, I've noticed in the social media over the last couple of days. I guess technically it would be considered that. A typical nor'easter, though, would be one barrel and then maybe a secondary formation. They'd be a lot stronger. But anyway, there they are. And a lot of times these are of major concern because of the snow that forms on the back end of these things that people in New England and the East Coast are well aware of. We take a look at, I believe this is the NAM. Looking into the forecast, this is the way it looked here at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon with those double areas of low pressure. And by tomorrow, Tuesday morning at about 7 a.m., one low out there. And except for the fact that we have pretty good flow coming in on the back side of this, that really hasn't been too much of a concern anymore. There are still coastal flood advisories and coastal flood warnings in effect for these areas, all the way from Boston all the way down to Norfolk. And the warnings are in effect for New Jersey and parts of Delaware. And again, that situation is going to slowly improve over the next couple of days. As you saw, the lows are weakening a little bit and reforming, but doing so offshore. Snow is creeping up in the higher mountainous areas. Here's the Sierra Nevada. Now we're talking about 2 to maybe 3 feet of snow in these mountainous areas here between now and Wednesday morning. Same for these isolated mountain ranges out here in Nevada. And even though less so, there is still snow in the higher elevations of parts of Montana, and not quite the same totals, but still a sign that colder air is beginning to infiltrate at least this part of the world. Let's take a look at that, though. We'll take a look at the high temperature departures, and indeed you can see it's very cool over California and over Montana. The green and blue shades mean below normal temperatures. Meanwhile, the streak of warm continues. Notice this is the high for Tuesday. Remember that I showed you a front here today at this hour, and it doesn't move. So if you see a front here, what was it, through central Kansas, I think, you might expect it would be here or even here the next day. Nope, not really. As a matter of fact, the heat's building back in with all the reds and the oranges and even the yellows being above normal. And you can see here, look at this, 80, low 80s in Des Moines and Kansas City, pretty abnormal for this time of year, very high on the abnormality there, 10 to 15 degrees above what is expected this time of year. The cool would be basically in the Rockies and all the West, and a little bit of New England and much of the East Coast. And then going fast forwarding 2 more days to Saturday, this pattern kind of shifts a little bit eastward. Parts of the New England area warm up. And indeed, if we go past this Saturday and we look at the pattern Sunday through Thursday, still the eastern 2/3 of the country is forecast to be above normal, with a high confidence of that being true in Texas and in New England, and a pretty high confidence of it being cooler than normal, centered on that bullseye right there in Idaho. Again, that starts this coming Sunday and goes through much of next week. Here are the flood watches that are in effect, just a handful of them from Phoenix and the Tucson area, kind of the southern portion of Nevada. Arizona, kind of the corner there of Colorado, southwest corner, scattered in areas off to the north and west of Los Angeles and off to the east of Fresno. That's basically rain. Remember, I showed you the snow in that area. Well, that's just the rain at the lower elevations, basically. If you take a look at precipitation over the next 5 days, we see this. Again, that's taking the form of rain and snow in the higher elevations, still going at flash flood pace, perhaps, southwest Colorado and parts of New Mexico. And a nice little bullseye here of rain that is very welcome in parts of Missouri, where the drought's been not relieved by very much. There's been a couple of rain events, but not very good. So let's take a look at the total precipitation. Again, most of this here is over the next couple of days, not the next 5 days, but I show it to you for completeness sake. And if we go back over Missouri, we're looking at maybe 1 inch totals, maybe getting to 1.5 inches through central Missouri there, southwest Missouri, maybe northern Arkansas as well. And it's for the next 5 days, so that would take it through Friday, basically. And then beyond that, Sunday through Thursday, the Pacific Northwest is looking pretty wet. A little bit of dry probability there in New Mexico, so they could use some drying out, and maybe a slight confidence level of some wet areas there. Tennessee River valleys, southeast U.S., maybe parts of the Appalachians and the Northeast as well. I do want to show you some model data from Saturday. I'll show you why in a minute, but this is a pretty strong trough of low pressure at the 500 millibar level. This is the GFS version of the forecast. This is, I think, noon on Saturday is what I picked for this. Notice that while generally speaking there's a drop of energy here, pretty strong winds, there's this little trough out ahead of this thing on the southern end of it, and that could have some pretty interesting implications in that area right there I'm circling for severe weather. Let's see if the Euro agrees. It's a little slower, and that trough is a little sharper, actually. So it's a little slower on Saturday. So that difference right there is why I'm going to show you the Storm Prediction Center's forecast. And this is a day 6 forecast for them. So to pull the trigger on this is actually pretty significant. But anywhere from southern Illinois through much of central and southeast Missouri and just about covering all of Arkansas, there is about a 15% chance of severe weather within a 25-mile area. I live in Springfield here, and one thing I did notice is that this forecast is actually backed up a little bit from a lot of the AI and model guidance. So it remains to be seen whether storms will actually be that active here or be in their embryonic stages and then cause more trouble as they move east. It's too far out, and a lot of my listeners, viewers, are from this area, obviously. So I haven't issued a heads up video on that event yet, but I'll be watching it, of course, much of this week. Well, Tropical Storm Lorenzo has formed, so we have chalked another one off the alphabet. This one is even less harmful, out of harm's way, than the last couple. It's going to start curving back out to sea pretty quickly, not affecting any land areas at all before it weakens here by this coming weekend. Tropical guidance is the same, making the same conclusion there, basically. And we have no tropical cyclone formation on the sites from the Hurricane Center for the next 7 days, with the exception, of course, of the already formed Lorenzo. If we take a look at the season now, we've had 11 named storms, 4 hurricanes, and all 4 have at one point in their life been major hurricanes. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.